We fucking got it, boys.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Is it just a sticker?
Yeah, it's a sticker. Quick little like thumbnail. There you go.
We got it, boys. There's a couple things I want to go over for the Switch 2. So first off, the experience of getting the Switch 2 was a lot fucking easier than me and my brother-in-law thought it was going to be. We pulled up to Target at 6:30 and we literally were the third and fourth people in line. Technically the third and second, but it was because the first people in line was a son and his mother. But then after 7 o'clock hit, some of the employees came out, or 7:30 I think. 7:30 came out, and some of the employees came out and they started handing out vouchers, and we ended up finding out that they had 50 of the Mario Kart Switch 2 bundles and then 45 of just the Switch 2 consoles themselves. So we were like, dude, this is the easiest launch ever. So we all got one, but yeah, let's get into what I think of it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the battery life. I'll start off kind of strong. I feel like out of everything, I think that's the only thing that I really have to complain about, but I'm also smart enough to know a little bit about electronics and the point of the higher resolution, the higher frame rates you start pushing out. It's extremely hard for tech to be able to power that off of a battery and it not look like a literal brick. That is one thing that I will say that I appreciate about the Switch 2 is that it remains the same thinness as the Switch 1. It is larger, very large. Like, I didn't think that a 7.9 screen was gonna feel that much bigger, but it feels ginormous. Like, it feels almost like an iPad mini with JoyCons on it. It's kind of crazy. But I do understand that it's really difficult to fit a battery that has that many milliamp hours in it and it not look like a literal brick, like I just said. So the battery problem isn't really an issue for me, especially since we're in a day and age where portable chargers and stuff are far and near. I'm still on the hunt for it, and as time goes on, I'm sure there will probably be battery packs that are specifically made for the Switch 2 that I'll probably pick up along the way. But for now, I just have been using my Anker 737 power bank. It's really good. I got this back when I had my ROG Ally because it was one of the few top 5 power banks that pushes out enough wattage for you to be able to use the 120 hertz on the ROG Ally, but I don't even have that anymore, so now it's literally just a power bank. But I've been using this on my Switch 2, and it has been coming in clutch whenever I drop below 50–40%. The screen has a pro and a con, I won't lie. The screen looks beautiful, and I don't know if that's because of the resolution that it's pushing out. The Switch 1 had a 720 display, LCD screen, and then obviously the OLED came out, and the OLED made it a little bit brighter and made it look a little bit cleaner because it was brighter. Now, while I do think that the resolution going up to 1080 from 720 does improve why it looks good, I will admit that it is not as bright in sunlight. It's extremely difficult to see even at max brightness on a really sunny day. So if you do happen to take it with you, make sure that you go and play it in somewhere that's shaded. Try your best not to play it out in the sunlight because you're not gonna be able to see the screen very easily, and then you're gonna have to max your brightness, which kills your battery faster. So just keep that in mind. I do think that as time goes on, obviously I'm probably not going to get this because it's going to be even more expensive, but I do believe that they're probably going to make an OLED version of the Switch 2. It's just a matter of when. The next thing I want to talk about is the JoyCons. The JoyCons feel like slightly bigger JoyCons. Let me put it to you that way. I think that in order for the Switch to stay compact in form factor, that they have to keep the JoyCons flat on the back. I do agree with most of the people that will always say that they're kind of uncomfortable to hold in your hands. I will always hold 2 separate JoyCons in my hands instead of attaching it to the Joy-Con grip, because my hands are just large enough that the Joy-Con grip kind of feels a little wonky in my hand. So that's why I also picked up a Pro controller. But for someone like Kenzie, she has a little bit smaller hands, so the Joy-Con grip kind of fits good in her hand. But for me, it's just my hands kind of like crumple up behind it because it's just flat. But the Joy-Cons are bigger, and I do appreciate that. And then surprisingly, me and my brother-in-law were very thrown off by this. The fact that the Joy-Con sticks feel smoother. The new dock, honestly, I wasn't a big fan of it when they announced what it looks like. I prefer, and I don't know if it's just because of my nostalgia, I honestly prefer the looks of the boxier looking dock. I will, play devil's advocate that it does look good because the Switch 2 is more rounded, but I just don't. The one cool thing that I do think is cool that, wasn't a thing on the Switch 1 and you had to buy an adapter for. I believe they added it to the Switch OLED dock. I'm not 100%, so don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure that the Switch 1 dock didn't have an Ethernet port on it, while this one does. And that's extremely important to me because there's days where, like, if I buy a new game that's like 20 gigabytes, I want to be able to download it fast as hell. Next thing, the storage. I am very, very happy about the storage because when I had my Switch OLED and even my Switch 1, it was not enough storage. I think it started out with 32 gigabytes on the Switch 1, and then I think the OLED had 64. Still not a ton, considering that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are pretty much combined. They're pretty much close to 50 gigabytes, I believe. However, they gave us 256 gigabytes of storage just on the system, which honestly, I don't think I'm ever going to use that. I know there's people that like to have their entire libraries downloaded. I'm not one of those people because I never usually have the time to play that many different games. So usually I'll just try to think ahead and be like, okay, do I see myself playing this game? And if I think that there might be a possibility that, you know, me and Kenzie might play like like Nintendo Switch Sports or something like that, I'll just make sure it's downloaded and I'll delete something else or offload it so that I can have room. I personally don't see myself getting a SD card for this until a lot of games come out, which is fine because you have to have a special express SD card. If you guys didn't know, informing you guys now, normal micro SD cards will not work because of the fastness of the storage that's in the Switch. So you have to get a micro SD card that is express grade, and that's that. Last but not least, I want to talk about the FPS and resolution because I just discovered this literally yesterday. I finally had time to hook my Switch up to my monitor back there. I have a 165 hertz monitor, but it's 2K. It's not full 4K. I then was very sad to find out that the only two games that are supported for the 120 frames per second right now is one of them not even being out. The only two games that support the 120 hertz refresh rate on the Switch 2 while it's docked is the Welcome Tour, which I don't have because I'm not paying $10 for that, and the new game where you're like in a wheelchair and you're playing basketball. If you guys know what I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I'll put a clip of it up right here. But those are the only two games that support 120 frames per second right now docked. And I was under the impression that Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild might support the 120 frames per second, and that's not the case. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom basically just doubled its frame rate, so now it's locked at 60, which it is smooth. It is extremely smooth, and it's satisfying that little itch that I had for the game to run at a buttery smooth frame rate. So I'm super happy about that. As far as resolution goes, I've never been a super hard guy to please for resolution because I used to play a lot of Call of Duty back in the day, and I would always put my graphics at the lowest settings. So coming from me, it's extremely easy to please me graphically because I'm so used to playing video games at a really shitty resolution. So I think Tears of the Kingdom looks amazing. I think Mario Kart looks amazing. I think anything that has a 1440p or the 4K 21 whatever, or the 38 by, I don't know, whatever, the 4K option, I think it looks incredible. All in all, Switch 2's sick. Basically all of the little minute details that I've wanted in the Switch, in Switch format, but better, obviously. And I think it's the perfect console right now for me. I'm not saying that has to be the perfect console for you, but I'm saying it's the perfect console for me right now because I just don't have a lot of time to play video games. And when I do, I typically only play for an hour or two maybe. Switch 2 is awesome. And if you guys get the chance to get one for retail and you had a Switch 1, my honest review is I think if you have a Switch 1 and you're happy with how it performs, you don't, how do I word this? If you have a Switch 1 or a Switch OLED and you're genuinely happy with the way that it plays games, I wouldn't recommend getting a Switch 2. If you're somebody that doesn't enjoy the frame rate or the lagginess of certain games on your Switch, I would highly recommend you get a Switch 2 because it is a very, not, monumental step up, but it is very, very noticeable about all the things that they've added to it. So let that be with a grain of salt. If you guys don't enjoy your first Switch, or maybe even your Switch Lite, you think that it's performing badly and it's not keeping a charge because it's so old, you want your games to look a little bit better, definitely go and try and get a Switch 2. But please, for the love of God, do not spend the scalper price on this thing. I'm telling you right now, it is not worth $800. It's not worth $750. It's not even worth $550 in my opinion. It's not worth it. Just wait until they restock and get it. But like I said, honest review, if you enjoy your Switch 1, just pass on this one for now. If you genuinely enjoy your Switch, like, that's fine. Enjoy it, and you're good. Other than that, this has been my Switch 2 review / my takes on the console itself, everything that it has to offer. That's the end of the review.